What's going on, podcast listening people? Connor Doobie here with the B2b Mentors show. Excited to bring a fire little preemption there, little fire episode for you today. Do this for me real quick. If we bring you any value, make sure you please share this with others in your network. Drop any questions, comments in the feed if you're watching after the fact, or if you're able to hop in while we're live. And again, you can always find us afterwards on all your favorite podcast apps. Just look up B2b Mentors or everywhere you like to listen. Please go to iTunes, leave a 5-star review so others can find the show too. And with that, my friends, I'm going to bring up the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Philip Pelto. And dude, that link takes so long to load up. I don't know if I got that to you.
No worries. I got it. And I posted it. So this, hopefully we're ready to rock and roll. It's my first time doing a live thing. So
yeah, I always like to test how nimble my guests are by getting that live link. It's like, load. I keep refreshing my post feed in LinkedIn. Right. I'm like, there it is. And I just pop it in as quick as possible. So I used to just jump straight into the show. And then I'm like, I need to say a few things to buy my guest like a couple extra seconds of time.
Yeah. So no, I think we're good, man.
Yeah, we're good. I'm pumped to have you here, and thank you for having me on your show recently as well. I'm so excited you're getting into the podcast game. And please, as a way to get started, just brag about yourself a little bit. Share a bit of your background. What led you in your life to where you're at in your career today?
Awesome, man. Love to. So I am a lifelong sales guy. I did not expect to find myself in sales, but I did. And it's kind of, it's a fun story about how we all get to where we're at and everything. But I actually got my first job telemarketing in high school, and I was pulling chairs at the local ski hill, and my girlfriend's dad offered me I think it was $1.25 more an hour to, telemarket. And I was like, sure, sounds good. And it turns out I was actually pretty good at it. So that started me down the sales path. And I liked the idea of, kind of controlling my own destiny and, having a commission-based approach to things. So I started selling other things and got into sales training and recruiting and management. And, eventually along the road, I got really good at asking for referrals and decided to start, doing that as a way to control my own prospecting efforts. I built a group, which turned into Firestorm. And so my buddy Chris and I started Firestorm back in 2005 as a way for us to control our prospecting efforts for our other businesses. And, it's kind of turned into this big thing. So here we are, and it's, we've got Firestorm, which is a B2B networking organization. We got CERTUS, which is a B2C networking organization. And then we've got our Referral Bench Podcast, which talks all about, relationship building and referrals and how to do that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's amazing. You've been going for that long with Firestorm. I didn't even realize it's been that long. What led you into because initially your focus was B2B. The B2C group is kind of newer, or you've had that one for a while?
So that group in particular, CERTUS, has been around just as long as Firestorm, but it was founded by someone else here in Denver, and I bought it back in July of 2019. So we're, doing some new fun stuff with it, and really excited about that piece of things as well. So, yeah.
Well, so this is B2B Mentors. Let's talk about B2B a little bit. What kind of led you into that world?
Well, so when I started out, I was B2C, and, I just no real rhyme or reason to it. That's where I found myself. And as I started to progress in my career and started to get different consulting gigs and, working with other clients. And I kind of got into that B2B space. And I realized that there really wasn't anything out there for specifically for the B2B crowd. Everybody was going to these events where it was a mix. There'd be some B2B folks, but the lion's share of it was B2C. And we sat down and had a conversation. I remember when we made the change, I was talking with a good friend of mine in Miami, and he was like, dude, you should just do like full on B2B, just go exclusively B2B. And so we did, and it worked out really great. And one of the reasons I think it's a different sales process. When you're talking to a business owner, there's a different type of conversation that happens. There's a little bit more complexity. There's less emotion in it. There's more things to consider. There's different decision makers. There's stakeholders and whatnot. It's not just the consumer, and so there's different types of conversations and other considerations that you have to make. And so I liked that complexity of it, and I liked thinking about it in different terms. And so yeah, it sort of matched with my personality and interests a little bit more, and we kind of got full on B2B back in like 2012. So
what do you find unique to building a B2B profitable referral network versus those who are more in consumer based businesses?
Well, the mechanics of it are the same. It's just a matter of understanding who your ideal client is and understanding who else is selling to that same ideal client and understanding what types of conversations they're having. So that changes, those people change, whether it's a B2C relationship or a B2B relationship, but the way you think about it is the same. It's identifying who those really good partners are and making sure that you're having the right kind of conversations with them, and they're having the right kind of conversations with their prospects and clients. So
is there anything strategically that you teach the B2B networkers versus B2C networkers, like a little more specifically?
Yeah, I don't know that it's it's sort of a situational thing. It'll change based on what industry you're in and what products you're selling and who your ideal clients are and everything. But the process is pretty simple, and I'm happy to share it with anybody and everybody. So you got to identify who your ideal client is. That's first and foremost. And if you're a B2C person, you're going to talk about what's the demographic makeup of your ideal client. Where do they live? How much money do they make? What are the products that you're selling them, et cetera, et cetera. With a B2B client, you're thinking about revenue and how many employees do they have, and what type of product or service are they purchasing from you. So be really, really well defined in that ideal client. And then once you have that ideal client profile figured out, then you can figure out who else is selling to that same person and has visibility to the same type of conversation. So, give you an example with, you're in a marketing role and helping people grow their marketing roles. So, or their marketing presence. If you think about that sales conversation, when you're sitting down with a client or sitting down with a prospective client, what are things that you're going to uncover in that course of conversation and discovery? You're going to talk about things like their website, their tech stack. They're going to talk about some budgetary issues. They're going to talk about who they're going after as clients. And so you've got all these pieces that you have visibility to, where maybe you're not necessarily doing software services and you're not doing hardware services, but that comes up because you're like, okay, if we're going to execute on all these ideas that we're coming up with and doing together, you need to have these three things in place. And if you don't have those three things in place, like, we can't really do our job effectively. So let me bring in another partner of mine that does this software piece, this hardware piece, this technology piece, that makes our lives a lot easier. So you think about those types of conversations, like how are you going to discover things for other people, and who else is sitting in front of that same customer having a different conversation about their banking needs, about their bookkeeping, about their tech stack, about their computers and iPads and whatnot, where they're going to be like, oh, that's not my piece, but I know somebody that can help you out with this other marketing side of things. So, you think about who's got visibility to those conversations, and then those become your good strategic partners, referral partners, or channel partners, or whatever it is that you want to call them. So now the game is go out and find those people and build a relationship with them, get to know them, get to know their business, get to know their clients, let them know about what you do, take them out for beers, go golfing, go, skiing, whatever it is that you want to do to cultivate that relationship. But you're just staying top of mind with them. You're building a relationship so they like you, they want to help you. You know that they're going to do a good job. They know that you're going to do a good job, et cetera. And then that nurturing process is just ongoing. It goes on forever and ever and ever. And that's the piece that, I think is super fun about building and developing relationships is, you get to just go out and hang out and have fun with your clients and your partners. And then, at some point you've got to leverage that relationship. You've got to ask them if they're not automatically giving you deals, excuse me, you've got to go out and ask them for them. You've got to say, hey, I know you're dealing with, XYZ client. I think I can help them. Would you mind making an intro for me? And they should be doing the same thing to you as well, as saying, hey, I know you've got this person as a client. I think we could really help them. Why don't you, make an intro for me? So the mechanics of it aren't any different, whether it's B2B or B2C, but the players are different. The types of conversations that you're having. And so I think it's just a matter of, deciding and differentiating between the two, which one am I, and then understanding that process. So
I think most people really fail to like map it out, right? They have an ideation of what would make a good partner. Like, hey, I want to go find partners and I'm talking to partners. But I've experienced too, because I've attended your groups, you actually go through a mapping process, right? Like an actual writing process. Touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just a visualization of everything that we just talked about. And it's also, the nice part about it is there's other people in the room that can give feedback on that. So, in that referral mapping process, we're thinking about, who's your ideal client, who are good referral partners, and then what are things to listen for, which I didn't really touch on, but we can talk about that. But the mapping process, we're whiteboarding it out and we're kind of brainstorming who are good strategic partners for us. And I probably have a good idea of who my strategic partners are. But sometimes, you're just so close to the situation that you don't see certain areas, and somebody that's in the room, if we have a meeting with 20 people in the room, somebody might come up with a crazy idea and say, hey, have you ever thought about, people that sell credit card processing services, or people that sell, the CERTUS, they sell uniforms and mats for your restaurants and stuff like that. That might be something where I spaced it out, didn't ever think about it. And somebody brings that idea up and I'm like, oh, dude, that's a great idea. I'd never thought about that. And there's CERTUS reps all over the city and knocking on doors and going into businesses all over the place. Like, they would be perfect. So I think a lot of the power is having a group of people around there to kind of keep you in check, keep you on your toes, make sure that you're thinking of things that, are sometimes out of the box, and wouldn't be obvious choices. So, and then there's also, times where, I think, hey, this is a great person. I really want that person to come in the group. And then other people can give me feedback and say yeah, that sounds great on paper, but in practice, that's a terrible idea. They never, it's like, when you're younger and, your parents are trying to get you to, go on a date with somebody. You're like, oh, it's perfect. On paper, they check all the boxes, but you're like, it's not gonna work out. So,
Yeah, it's kind of it's almost like the way you've set it up is really almost like a mastermind group and networking combined.
Yeah, totally.
It's really, really powerful stuff because it's so easy to get close to what you do, but you surround yourself by other sellers, promoters, marketers. People have so many different angles that you probably never would have imagined or considered. So yeah, I mean, it's firsthand, it's extremely powerful. And even if you're not in a group like that, if you can get around a group like that can provide outside input, is extremely profound for your business. And you've been, hugely successful at doing this over the years. How have you kept people committed, regularly showing up in person? How have you really built this beast out over the years and kept people returning?
Yeah. Well, I think, at the end of the day, it's because we get results, I'm not going to expect somebody to keep showing up and coming for years and years and years if they're not getting anything out of it. So, the proof is in the pudding. and people keep showing up and keep coming, and we've got really great client retention, and the people are excited about what they're getting out of it. So at the end of the day, I don't know that it's anything that I've done other than we just do a good job and people get results. So they're growing their businesses, and they're getting referrals, and they're getting other resources for their clients and stuff like that. So the one thing I will say that we have been really good at is being very judicious in who we allow to be a member. It's the secret sauce is in getting good people together and making sure that they're great partners. They get along personally and professionally. We have a high standard for, ethics and integrity, and, you conduct your business in a certain way. We have this growth mindset. People want to be around other people that are doing well and, having a good time with their businesses. So, we attract those types of people, and that keeps people around. But, and we just won't take anybody. And I think a lot of times, other groups are too eager to grow, and they'll, hey, you can write a check and fog a mirror. Sweet, you're in. That's not how we do things. So I think that's been a huge, sort of key to our success.
That's a hilarious. I'm gonna start using that. You can fog a mirror.
Yeah.
All right, good. Yeah. Well, and I was, when I was first really starting to build my career in Denver, I was attending any and all networking events I could get my hand on, and some were just like garbage. I mean, it was just like everyone and their grandmother was in there. There's like 25 different retail, residential real estate agents in there. It's either 50% financial advisors, 50% real estate agents, and then 1% whoever, which I think is 101%, which is exactly my point. So yeah. And so here's something interesting. In all of my consultations I do with clients, I always ask them, hey, what percentage of your business are you doing through channel partners, referral partners, or just partners in general? And consistently I hear, dude, we've tried the partnership route before, and the referral route, it just doesn't work for us, right? It doesn't work for our business, doesn't work for our industry. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are, the kind of like launch and then total failure at launching a successful partner channel?
I honestly think that they just haven't given it enough time, and it's a long-term play. It's not something where, with like Facebook ads, which I admittedly know nothing about. But I know that you can get easy, fast results, and you can launch an ad, you can throw some money at it, and you can know pretty quickly if that ad sucks or if it's going to produce for you. And you can make some tweaks, you can A/B test it, you can, do all these things, and you can get real data on it, and pretty decent data. And that all happens fairly fast. So, with networking, relationship building, channel partnerships, strategic partnerships, you don't necessarily get immediate feedback on it, and you don't have that immediate data analysis that you can run and say like, yes, this is working, or no, it's not working. You really have to invest a ton of time in it, and you have to believe in the long term of it. So this is something that I think is very topical right now. Bitcoin, right? Like, everybody's talking about Bitcoin. It's gotten a lot of institutional attention right now. I'm a Bitcoin believer, but it's gonna fluctuate a ton. Like, it's gone up a lot this year. Yes, it's probably going to pull back. It's had a little bit of a pullback here in the last, couple of days. But I'm a long-term believer. I think this thing's going to the moon, and it's going to be a, general, everybody's going to know about it. Everybody's going to use it or have it, want it, etc. And, there's people that are very, very, very skeptical, including a lot of my friends and family, that are just like, what the hell is that? I don't understand this. This doesn't work. This sucks, blah, blah, blah. And really smart people too. I mean, look at Warren Buffett. Like, he hates it. He thinks it's going to die and wants it to die. And, so I use that analogy because it's going to take time. It's going to take time for people to get used to it, to adopt it, to see the results from it. And, I'm a long-term player. That's my thing, is I'm looking at the 10, 20, 100-year game. And that's why I think relationships are, my jam, because I'm not going to see results from a relationship immediately. But if I invest time, energy, I nurture that relationship, eventually it's going to start to pay dividends. And there's another sort of, I don't know, anecdotal story or whatever. This is one I use in presentations a lot. There's an exorbitant amount of effort that you have to expend in the beginning of anything, whether it's starting a business, starting a relationship, that you've just got to put in a ton of effort and energy and money and whatever it is, and you're not going to get a lot of results. And then there's this sort of line that your energy starts to decrease and the returns start to increase. And eventually there's an equilibrium. And I don't know when it is, maybe it's 6 months down the road, maybe it's 18, maybe it's 3 years. I don't know. Depends on a lot of different factors. But the analogy for this that I always like to use is when we went to the moon for the first time, the shuttle that took us there, I think, round numbers, right, used 1 million gallons of fuel to get to the moon and back. 55% of that was used to go the first 40 miles. So we used over half the fuel to go like 1/1000th of 1% of the distance. And then the additional 45% got us all the way to the moon and back. And relationships, same thing. You've got to put a ton of effort and energy in the beginning. You're not going to see any results from it, but eventually it starts to pay off. And so anyway, to long-winded answer to your initial question, which is, I think people just are too focused on the immediate returns. And when they don't see those, they're like, screw it, didn't work. And I'm going to go on to, Facebook ads or cold calling or, knocking on doors or whatever it is.
Back to the old, and not to say those things are bad.
No.
Like, to the people who are really winning are doing both, right?
Totally, yeah.
But we live in such an instant gratification era that we want it now, we want it right away. And so for those of us who are willing to invest in Bitcoin and hang on for the next 10, 15 years, it's to the moon, baby.
Yep.
It's to the moon. So I think that's really interesting. And so I just totally lost my train of thought where I was going with that.
No
Instant gratification versus prolonged. Oh, now I remember. I had a point on that, is just my own personal experience with referrals and actually putting in, because I used to do the same thing, like, dude, these referrals aren't working for me. And then I started actually creating training products for my referral partners and giving it to them at no cost to them, and continuing to meet with them, provide them more resources. And there's some partners that I got set up and I was turning over deals within 2 weeks of meeting these partners, like, pretty sizable deals with companies, all B2B sales.
Yeah.
So it's like that gasoline that you're going to pour into it in the beginning really makes a difference versus just saying, do you want to refer me business? Sure, I'll refer you business. Do you want to refer me business? Sure, let's do it. And then nothing happens.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that you made another good point. That's educating your customers and making sure, and your partners, and making sure that, they know what you do and they know when they can bring you in on a deal. And then you got to stay top of mind with them, so like making sure that you are texting them and, calling them and emailing them, and however it is that you want to, stay in front of them, just be like, hey, what's up? I'm here. Because if they don't, if they know what you do and they like you and they trust you, that's all great and everything. But if they don't think about you when they're in front of a good prospect, it's all kind of useless. So you've got to, stay in front of them and be top of mind. So
are you a fan of compensation model when it comes to partners?
I know that people have used that successfully in the past. I think you can go either way. I think there's a lot of times where people, they just want to have you as a resource because they know you do a good job and they want to help you out. And they know that, hey, you're running a business and I'm going to send you deals because you do a good job and you take care of my clients. And I want to be a service, a value add for my clients. So if they need something, I'm going to hook them up. I don't think you necessarily have to compensate people. I mean, it's nice, if you do. But honestly, from my perspective, I think there's a lot of industries that there's legal concerns with that. They can't do compensation. And so I don't think people should, really, focus on that or it shouldn't be a barrier to them not, getting referrals and, building their channel partnerships out. So.
And then others kind of just lead with that. Like all they go out is, hey, bring me a deal. I'll give you 10K, 20%,
I'm
5%,
not
like whatever. They start with that versus seeing like treating it like a sale. Like when you're in a B2B sale, you don't just go in and pitch your product and service. You assess what is important to that person on the other side of me.
Yeah. I don't like, I will kind of go back on what I said. If somebody just leads with that and is like, hey, we're good partners and I'll pay you 10% of anything that you bring me. No, totally uninterested. Like,
yeah,
I want to give deals to people that I like, and I want them to be successful. Like there has to be a relationship there. I will not give you a deal just because you're dangling some monetary incentive in front of me. Because maybe it's stupid, but that's just not how I roll. So, I want there to be a relationship with everybody that I do business with. And if I'm sending them deals, I want to like their business. I want to like them. I want to see them be successful. And, there's a guy that came and knocked on my door it was this summer or no, it wasn't, it must not have been in the last year. The time all blends together these days, but, anyway, it must've been like 2019 in the summer. He knocked on my door.
Some other time that wasn't today. It was a different day. Right, it wasn't today. It was a different day.
Anyway, so he knocks on my door and he was like, hey, I own a oil change shop that's down the street from you and blah, blah, blah. Obviously you have cars, can you come over and, we'll give you a deal. And it's like, $20 for an oil change. I'm like, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the hustle and I'm a sales guy. I love that you knocked on my door. But I know my auto shop, and yes, they charge me 3 times what you're telling me you'll charge me, but those are my friends and I've been taking my cars there for like 7 years. Like I'm not going to change just because some dude knocked on my door. So, even if it's cheaper or if there's some monetary incentive, like I still want to go to people that I like. I want to support my friends and their businesses. So
you monster. I did door-to-door sales for 2.5 years. Come on. That shit's hard, man.
I know. And I'm usually the biggest sucker too. Like, yeah, I listen to anybody.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I get you. So how's Firestorm? How have you guys pivoted over this last year with everything going on?
Yeah, man, it's been amazing. We have had a huge increase and really, again, it's one of those things where we're providing a great service, great value for people. And, people want this, they want to connect with people. They want to build relationships. They want to grow their business this way. And we're giving an easy way to do that, putting structure, framework, processes around it, et cetera. So we've had a great increase. We actually had a 50% increase in our business last year. And, I don't know if it's much of a pivot. We're still doing the same thing, but the way that we do it is different. We're doing it all virtually. We're doing this, Zoom kind of thing and, getting together virtually. But the relationships are still the same. The quality of the networking is still the same. The relationships, the connections, the business, the deal flow, all of that stuff is still the same. It's just, we're doing it in a different way. So,
have you seen attendance actually increase via people showing up for Zoom?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you almost think to yourself like, damn, maybe I should have done this whole Zoom thing like, years ago.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it had come up before, and I'll be honest, I was very resistant to it.
I know we've talked about it too. Like I've literally years ago when you and I had talked about it, I'm like, why don't you just think through Zoom ever or stuff like that? So
Yep. Yeah. I was very resistant to it. And, when this whole thing happened, it kind of forced my hand and it's been great. I mean, it takes all the objections off the table. There's no more, oh, I couldn't find the building. I got stuck in traffic and, I didn't want to be late. And so, or if I show up and the meeting sucks, then I'm not going to be able to leave. I'm stuck there for an hour and a half, blah, blah, blah. Like none of that stuff is an objection anymore because, you just turn your computer on and if it's terrible, you're like, sorry, my internet dropped. I don't know what happened. So, yeah. And I mean, you think about like tonight in Denver,
put
we're
a
going to
404 error code up on your Zoom,
on
your Zoom picture.
Yeah, like tonight in Denver, we're supposed to get snow. And, so Thursday morning meetings would have been shot because traffic's going to be terrible and everybody's going to call in. Oh, we're not going to come because you can't drive and blah, blah, blah. And no, like you just roll out of bed and throw your computer on. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, I'm pumped to see everything's on the up and up and you guys are growing and shaking. Incredible organization. Lots of networking groups out. I use networking in air quotes, lots of groups out there, but Mr. Pelto is definitely one to get into and check out. And you're you're eventually going to expand out of Colorado, right? Or you have a few outside now.
Yeah, it's yes. Short answer is yes and yes. And we're at a point now, especially virtually, where we can turn on, the machine anywhere. So, if there's people listening to this that are in, Tampa, Florida or Nashville, Tennessee, and are interested in, Firestorm and starting a group, hit me up because we can turn it on anywhere. So yeah, eventually, the plan is world domination, but we're, slowly getting there. So
love it. Cool. And anything else actionable you want to share before we wind things down here?
Oh, check out our podcast. I see the little ticker on the bottom there, the referralbench.com. So we just launched that in January. Super excited about it. And we're just talking about, building relationships and strategic partnerships and growing your business with referrals and networking. So check it out on whatever your favorite podcast thing is. But it's the Referral Bench.
Cool. Sounds great, man. And best way for people to get in contact with you, how can they find you?
Yeah.
Where do I find Mr. Phil?
Just hit me LinkedIn is probably the best place. And so it's Philip Pelto, Philip with one L. Oddly enough, there is only one of me in the entire world. So if you Google Philip Pelto.
Wait, seriously?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And It's terrible. I can never run for public office because there's nowhere to hide, So, yeah. So I'm pretty easy to find. Philip Pelto on all the channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. So.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate you taking the time and being here today. And with that, stick around for one quick second, Phil, while we wrap up. All of you, make sure you check out the podcast. Wow. Check out I see Phil behind scenes laughing at me. Check out Phil's podcast. Check out our podcast, all your favorite podcast apps. Leave a 5-star review so others can find the show too. Please make sure you share this with anybody else in your network who you'd find valuable. If you have guests that you recommend for the show for B2b Mentors, make sure to send me a DM. You can find me on all the social media platforms out there. With that, my friends, I'll see you on the other side.